This conference will now be recorded.
All right, so today is Friday, January 8th, and as always, everything that we're going to be talking about today is for educational purposes only, and nothing is intended as any type of investment advice. So this pre-market, we've had a lot of nice trades coming out, especially with these cheaper stocks. But the only thing that kind of worries me a little bit about that is that we've had quite a bit of money time that's actually already happened, but we also have a lot of building, but we'll get into it. So first thing that we're going to be looking at is this FTFT. So obviously we have the buying at 9 to be able to not only the buying at 9, but pretty much the buying all morning that's been coming in to show us that we do have the ability to get up to that 10 level. My biggest problem, though, is right here at this 850. We had a nice little burst of prints that came back in, and it never actually pulled back underneath 850. So unfortunately, right now, even though it's heading towards that 9 level, and we're starting to see this, these bursts of selling that are coming in, for instance, right here at 880. I mean, we don't get me wrong, we have the buying to continue on its way, but I really would have liked to see it come underneath that 850 first before we would end up getting that trigger towards the upside. So it doesn't mean that a trigger towards the upside is not going to be a high percentage. It still is. It's just going to be a lower percentage until it actually comes underneath that 850. Next thing looking at is MDGS. So nice little trade here that came out above that 3 level. Unfortunately, just really couldn't get the legs, couldn't continue that volume coming in, but we have excellent buying that came, it's not gonna let me show you, but excellent buying that came in at 3, and not only at the 3, but we have beautiful prints that were coming at 304, 305, the 315 area. So we have a lot of buying coming in over this 3 level. We can see that we had this staircase coming into it, and it's kind of broken out of that staircase. So in this case, really a trigger, we have enough buying, especially on the shorter term side of things, to be able to get back towards this double top. Next thing, GRNQ. So this was just a very, very easy trade coming in. Just looked way too damn pretty. We had beautiful aspirants that came in at 3, continued on its way up all the way to the 330 level, and is right now it's basically just pulling back. Now the selling that came in afterwards at this 3 is telling us that they do expect more of a movement towards that downside. Unfortunately, a stock like this, I would not be shocked if this was money time and they made their money and it just kind of died out, never came back up. But we definitely do have enough aspirants at that 3 level for us to be able to get back up towards that 330. The only thing that kind of sticks out to me is this 3 as we came back down. Could just be a stop loss. That's where they were going to stop the rest of their position at 3, but unfortunately, it really looks like it's showing a lot more room towards that downside, which is not a good thing because there's not really much room to the downside to go to be able to build to then push it back up. So just keep that in mind as you see a trigger coming into it. Just beware of false triggers. GXGX, next thing looking at. So I know it's not very pretty at all, but if we come over here, I just want to show you some of the things that we've had because these prints really stand out. So as we come, 1060, okay, 1040, okay, but 1050 right here. It started with S, but it continued with bid. So basically what that tells us is a quick pull up and then movement back towards that downside. And then we get followed up by prints coming in at that 1040. Now on the way back up, we see 1050 S, which very easily could be covering. But then unfortunately, the second phase of that does show a bunch more buying. So it's kind of up in the air to a point until we see these 1045. These 1045 prints stick out more than all of them do. So I'm going to follow the person that we saw, quick move to the upside, and then these 1045 prints give me confidence that we're going to be looking for this thing to break down towards that downside. It is shortable, so you don't have to even go out there and request shares. And then CNET. So CNET, unfortunately, I don't really have any information for you because the trade's happening. Just over the 230. I know Doug had called it out. Just you're talking about just gorgeous, gorgeous, big short-term prints that came into this that basically said, let's go. It's time for this to become a trade. Those are the type of prints that we'll talk about in classes next round that basically just say, follow me in, which we always typically wait for a pullback or a pull up, but those it's a certain type of print pattern that just says this person, I'm getting in right this second because the stock is going, and that's exactly what we've seen so far. So at this moment, we're gonna have to watch at the reaction of the double top. I have no trade to even give you because the trade's happening at this moment. Obviously, in no way whatsoever would I ever suggest trying to follow this trade in. The only other thing though is that 250 didn't really get the pullback that we would have liked. So once again, it's money time. A lot of times when you see these cheaper stocks have money time all morning, what ends up happening is they just die out once the morning starts. So something that we definitely want to be aware of. All right, guys, anything else out there that I missed? Anything else out there that I missed? Beautiful. Oh, that's right. IPOE. You know what? I have it on my screen, and I'm sitting here this morning, and I just didn't write it down. All right. So overall, we have a huge amount of buying that's been coming into this thing around this 25. Excuse me. At first, that began earlier in the morning as we were coming up to our 2150. We have not really as much as we'd like to see coming into it yet, but we still have plenty. I mean, this is what we saw, so it's definitely showing that we have new buying coming up. The only thing is that it really hasn't pulled. Again, it's trading a little bit consolidated, and it really just hasn't pulled back as far as I would like to see it. But overall, like I said, I mean, it's got buying and buying and buying. Most of what we've seen is going to be buying. Remember, we're always going to see this selling coming in, but we have to kind of look at the money flow, especially when it comes into the pre-market. So to be completely honest with you, I am expecting this to pull back pretty substantial amount because of the selling that we're seeing coming in after the amount of buying that we did see. All right, remember 20 is one of those levels. 20 is not an easy level to get away from. So that's kind of where my mind's going with the amount of buying that we had triggered towards the downside based off the amount of selling coming in after that buying to bring us down to at least, pretty much this orb line. It's a nice little trade that we're seeing here. The only problem is that you might not be able to short it. Obviously, go out there and get shares if you can, but I know, it took a while to get them. So, if you try right now, I'm not sure how that's going to work out, but that's what I'm going to have to be looking at first. The only thing as well to keep in mind is that this is now becoming this exception mode. It's still technically really an IPO. So it's very possible that this could just go into crazy mode. We haven't really seen enough information to be able to notice that, but based now off our rules and based off the prints, we're going to be looking for a pretty substantial pullback. All right, guys, let's get ready for our morning. I will talk to everyone in the chat, and happy trading.